waiting to
Yeah,
see.
it's Valentine's Day here, so
Oh.
No,
Beautiful.
thank you.
shh, don't tell the wife.
Shh.
Yes, after we're done here, I have to sneak out and buy some Valentine's Day cards and flowers and stuff. Well, card because I'm married now.
So you're quite attuned to how it's done in England, yeah?
Yeah.
Go to the BP garage
Right.
and get some wilted flowers.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've got everything bought that I needed to buy. I just have to go pick up the flowers at some point tomorrow. All right, we're ready to go. We're streaming.
Oh, cool. Ready?
Hi.
Welcome to Nintendo Dads episode 267, recorded on the 13th of February 2020. And on tonight's episode is, well, some news that's all over the place. You got Activision Blizzard is planning some reimagined and remastered titles for the Switch. What could they be? And also Atlas doing some surveys and all this stuff and much, much more. Jesse, get ready, because here we go.
Greetings and welcome to episode 267 of the Nintendo Dance Podcast, recorded in the United States. It is the day before Valentine's Day. In the UK, it already is. This is February 13th, and we are Marty-less and Justin-less. So I am your host tonight, Jesse Waldak, and we'll start us off with our initial voiceover, Gary, who gave the camera a nice big pucker as we started the stream.
Yeah, it's Valentine's Day here in England, and guess what? I did not sleep through my alarms for once. Can you believe that?
Yay!
So I'm back, baby. Piao, 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 piao. There you go. That's what you
Nice. Then we have the community manager, Tim Off.
Hello. I'm on
Hello.
again
He's
with
on.
my phone because my computer doesn't want to work.
And then we have one of our Patreon producers, David Erzberger, joining us this week. How are you doing?
I am doing good. Good evening, good morning. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you're also calling in from the UK, so it is also 4:30 in the morning for you.
Yes, it's also already Valentine's Day, and the panic is setting in even at this early hour. That's correct.
know, we need to stop having Dave on this show because he actually wakes up for his alarms. It's making me look bad.
Yes, once a year when I join, I'm faultless.
Nice. So yeah, before we start with the news, I wanted to do a quick talk about that I had got sent some Joy-Con to Nintendo of America for repair. I had a total of 3 sets. One from a set from myself, a set from my son, and a set from my daughter. And they quoted me 3 to 4 weeks, and including the shipping time both ways and the weekend, there was a 9-day turnaround. So
Wow.
I sent them back on the 4th and got them back today. And of course that means I also comes with bubble poppy envelopes that I get to play with. So I just wanted to do that on air. That's why I wanted to talk about that. So
Making me hungry.
I sent some Joy-Cons off to repair for Nintendo UK, and famously we're not doing the whole free to repair Joy-Con things. But they actually did mine for free, but I sent like 4 pairs across. And the funny thing is the one Joy-Con wasn't the drift where the others were. It was actually that the side rail was broken. It didn't light up, or the SL and SR buttons didn't work. And when they sent them back, they sent the list of repairs for each Joy-Con, and surely enough, that one hadn't been fixed, but they did say they'd fixed the drift problem on it, which it didn't have. So I think they're obsessing about it themselves. They're like, everything's got drift.
right. And the funny part is when they were, I had one repair order number, sent them a box of 6 Joy-Con. When they opened the box on Monday, they created 6 work orders, 1 for each Joy-Con.
Yeah,
And
they
then-
did that for me too.
And then when they shipped it, they gave me 6 different UPS tracking numbers one for each Joy-Con. And then Marty said, no, they still put it all in one box, and that's what I did get, one box with the 6 Joy-Con in it. I just thought that was funny the way they handled that.
Yeah, I did. That didn't happen for me. They sent them in different boxes.
Oh, you did get different boxes.
Yeah, they sent them in like Nintendo branded boxes, and some came in like bubble wrap like yours, and others came in like these.
I'm
proper
surprised they
impact
use
sleeves.
Nintendo brand, because that's just asking for Ports Pirates.
Yeah, well, they put them in like a shipping bag over the top of the box.
Okay, yeah. My box, it was just completely generic. It was white with brown tape. It could have been anything. Anyway, so that was enough of that. Let's start with the news. And our news is brought to us by our lovely folks at patreon.com/NintendoDads. And Tim has our new patrons of the week.
Yes. I'd like to say hello to Christopher Logel and Andre Dennis. And I apologize for maybe messing up your names. But
because that never happens around here.
Yeah,
right
thank
Marty?
you for yeah. Thanks a lot for joining us this since last show, and thanks to all of our patrons for being our patrons and supporting us on the show. Helps us keep the lights on. Of course, I have mine off. I just have these glowy lights behind me. That's about it. But
technically, my lights are off too, and I'm just being held by the lamps, just because that I show up on the camera better that way.
There you go.
Okay, so
he's got the nice fancy light in front of him. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
he's got the dancing lights.
I've tried having other lighting in front of me that face on me, but it blinds me, and I don't like using it. Like this, I have this one that is magnets onto my network rack up here, but it doesn't angle right. So anyway, what type of news do we have this week?
So we had our news posted by Marty for us in the Patreon, and he listed quite a few news items. But we had our news items voted on by our Patreons, who voted on the first item being the top news item they wanted to hear about was the Activision Blizzard is planning reimagined and remastered titles for this year. What could they be? And that was voted at 24%. So there's all kinds of speculation across the internet on what they could be. Got one site like.
Any talk about actually on the Switch, or is this just PC, Xbox stuff? Do we know, or what? Do we know nothing? Everything's speculation at this point.
It's just speculation. It could be across any of the consoles or even PC.
It'll be a Diablo mobile game. Oh wait, they already tried that.
I think it could be. I know, if I remember correctly, I thought I heard they were working on a new Tony Hawk game, so it's possible that could be one. If not bringing over some of the older ones, which I think would be cool if they did like a trilogy of the better ones. But if they brought those over, or if they did do a new one using some of the old school formulas.
Just as long as it's not the one that has the stupid accessory that you had to actually stand on and fall off of.
Yeah, the Guitar Hero thing when everybody was trying to do accessories.
Right.
Between that and the DJ turntable for one, and
well, the DJ
I have
one
all those accessories.
The DJ one actually made sense because that's an arcade franchise, and the controller looked very similar to what the arcade controller looked like. The arcade, I think, had more buttons, but that still made. I had no idea how to play the thing, but the controller still makes sense if you know how to play the arcade.
Yeah, and I know that's really popular in Japan too. Those type of games as well. David, do you have any idea about an Activision game you think would be cool to come over, or one that they could be remastering?
Well, I was looking over the Blizzard stuff. Is it more focused on the Blizzard side of things, or is it more broad, do you think, than that?
I think it said between Activision and Blizzard, so it's definitely broad.
Yeah, so I was acquainting myself with the Blizzard roster of the back catalog that they have, and nothing really screams out at me. But StarCraft, if they were going to reimagine that, I think that could be pretty interesting. We don't have a lot of real-time strategy stuff, and being a Pikmin fan myself. I'd be interested to see what they would do with that if they'd bring that across. I've never played it before, actually, but a lot of those real-time strategy games, if you rethink them for 2020, I think there's something to do with those because they could do with a complete reset. So I'd be interested to see what they might do with that. That would be the one I would be most interested in because, Diablo coming across, World of Warcraft being reimagined, that's not going so well, right? So I think there's also not too much to pick from they haven't already tried to dabble with, I think.
Yeah, I was also thinking StarCraft, but with Tim's already trying to throw money at the camera. Yeah, I was also thinking StarCraft, but the recent release of the remaster of Warcraft 3 pretty much did everything wrong. So
yeah, right. Yeah. So it's the one jewel they have that they can try. They haven't messed up recently, I think.
And in fact, they patched the original game to use a similar engine as the new game, so even the old game doesn't work right anymore. So it's just
There's a shortage of RTSs, I think, on Switch. That would be really cool if they could bring that StarCraft or even 2 over.
Yeah, I think you can get Civilization 6 on the Switch, right? I think that's available. I mean, it's not a RTS, it's turn-based, but that's the closest thing they have. I'd like to see an RTS on there.
I think the biggest issue with there it is. The biggest
Nice.
issue with real-time strategy on console is they play better with mouse and keyboard. And while definitely,
that's true.
The Xbox can support it, and I know the Switch can support a keyboard, probably not a mouse, but and there was previous games. I think StarCraft was on N64, and other companies have tried it, and they've never been all that great. So if someone can figure it out, then they're going to get some sales.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think a good example of a real-time strategy that actually works on the Switch is Bad North. Although it is done as a bit of a smaller one because you only have a maximum of 4 squads, but they figured it out pretty well because the game slows down as you're selecting units, so it gives you time to sort of plan where to go. So there is ways around it, but as a whole, they suck with the controller, right? But I mean, this is kind of it's a tough one to call because if you look at Activision's list of games, it's huge and a lot of it is very retro.
Yeah.
So I think they did the Quake series, right, and stuff like that. So it's a massive.
They may have the rights to the Quake series. I don't think they originally did them. I think that was Ed, wasn't it? But they have the rights to it now.
And there's a lot of like Atari games in there and stuff. So it's it's
Activision started off as a spin as from people who broke off from Atari because they wanted, because at the time Atari wasn't crediting the developers in fear of other people buying, eating them up. So they kept it a secret, but then we want to be recognized. So they started their own company, and Atari tried to sue them and lost, and they said, no, they can do this. And therefore the third party market was born.
Yeah, so like it's an interesting one, right? Because we could all speculate that it's going to be, the newest this and that, but we might end up with just some collections of very, very old games instead.
Yeah, I see buried in their catalog is Tony Hawk series, so I wonder if there's that's one that people are always crying out for, despite all the misadventures in recent Tony Hawk series. But that could be a temptation too strong to resist. I could well imagine that.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping as a trilogy. That would be cool.
I want to see Pitfall 2 ported to the Switch.
I mean, the one game that Activision has had. What was it again now? They had their fingers in something that I really liked. I can't remember what it was. Oh, that was it. GoldenEye 007, the remake.
Oh.
You know how I forget which was it Namco? They've been doing a lot of remakes on their classics like Pac-Man and a lot of their classic games. So I could see Activision doing something similar with their classics.
Yeah, I mean, just having a quick look through the list now, they've got the MechWarrior series, they've got Medieval. There's a lot of games, Yeah,
because there's a lot of collections out there. There's 2 Mega Man collections, a third one's coming. There's Castlevania. There's a bunch of arcade. They're missing out. People want this stuff.
Right.
Oh, Tim, they did a game that you're going to be interested in, the Muppets Treasure Island.
Yes. Sweet.
People love Tenchu, right? I could go for a stealth
Gesundheit.
ninja game. That sounds pretty good.
And going back to the RTS thing, there was a game I reviewed last year, I think it was, called Mushroom Wars 2. That was an RTS that came out on the Switch. So, and it was pretty good. I'd probably give it, if I remember correctly, I'd probably give it about a 7. So it was a good 7, especially for what it was. Maybe even an 8 if I played it longer.
Yeah, I have to imagine that if they're going to reinvent things, reimagine things, they've got to be talking 90s or 80s as opposed to 2000s and 10s. So it feels like it's got to be 20 years older or more to really fit the bill here, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. In the chat, Deontay Hancock says, "I wish we can get some kind of Acclaim or Midway collection someday." There was rumors of a Mortal Kombat collection coming out somewhere. I don't know if it's Switch or not, but at least there's some Midway. I don't know who owns the rights to Acclaim games anymore. I don't think Acclaim's still around.
No. I mean, it's a shame because they had a hand in one of my favorite games of all time, which is Crazy Taxi, and I want that game on the Switch so bad.
Get an actual steering wheel peripheral.
Oh, I really wanted that Mario Kart Hori one, but the price of it, ouch, just for Mario Kart, yeah, not so much.
Yeah, Acclaim filed for bankruptcy in 2003 and then was sold off to various people, which sounds horrifying.
Yeah, well,
it no longer exists in any way.
Which means it's like a THQ situation where it just went to auction and all their IPs went to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was a depressing way to end that. Do we have anything else here that might cheer us up?
Yes, we got plenty of news items. I was going to mention too, Midway. It looks like they were bought by Warner Brothers Interactive, so that's who owns that one.
Yeah, and I think most of the original, like the Midway developers of the early mid '90s, are now part of NetherRealm Studios, and they still make Mortal Kombat games.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll move on to this.
Ed Boon is still with the franchise.
Of course. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which also got 24% of the votes from our Patreons, which is Atlas has asked fans if they want Nintendo Switch ports of their games, which sets a record high number of responses. And which I also say, duh.
Yeah.
Of course.
With what I read on this, I think this was a survey done in Japan. I don't think it was here. And they like specifically spelled out, would you be interested in Catherine, in Persona, in blah 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 blah, and I'm like, yeah, who would say no? Yeah, this is kind of an example of what we were talking about last week, but Wonderful 101 Kickstarter. Sure, everyone's going to say yeah, but who's going to actually put their money where their mouth is? That's the big question.
Yeah, I think they're playing with fire here because in the sense that if you ask people, do you want something, almost everybody says yes, to your point. But then when you say to somebody, will you buy my thing, hardly anybody gets their wallets out. So I don't know if this is more PR puffery or a real thing. But to your point, if you ask, do you want it in the future, then people will always say yes. Who's going to say no, right?
Right. And I think, too, that they would use the latest game that's going to come out in Japan first, which is the Scramble game. Probably as a test bed to see, how popular that franchise would be on a Nintendo console.
That comes out next week.
Yep. And I hope it comes over not too much longer after that to the U.S. and U.K. as well. So get that English translation. So that'd be cool.
Yeah.
For that.
What little I've been able to piece together of the story based on the demo and using that Google Translate app on my phone, I'm interested in where the story goes, and I'm also interested in knowing how accurate what the translations were.
Yeah. David, Gary, did you guys play that Scramble demo at all? No.
Not on my side.
Okay.
My son tried setting up a Japanese account so we can download it, but he didn't set it up right. And I'm like, oh yeah, you need to do it from the website first, not from the Switch.
Right. Yeah.
In order to tell the account that you are in Japan. So I think he'll try that again later, if he even remembers what the login. All right. Yeah, I'm definitely if if Persona 3, 4, 5 come out, I will buy them again. Whether I'll play them right away, I don't know, but I will buy them.
Yeah. Yep. I will definitely buy one of them, maybe all of them, but for sure one of them. It just depends on what comes and at what time. So Scramble for sure when it comes over, English version. But then if they come out with one of the other Personas, then just depends on which one comes out first. I'll probably grab that one. So and then go from there. All right, on to the next topic here. We got 14% of the votes from the Patreons on 30% of the Switch Lite owners already own a Nintendo Switch. And that I'm reading off of IGN. Looks like, let's see, from its release on September 20th to the start of the holiday season, approximately 43% of Switch Lite owners are already own the console. So, looks like there's a different number there.
Yeah, this doesn't surprise me at all because I mean it's the Game Boy and DS effect, right, where people just buy them, like regardless of whether they need them or want them, really, for like any like actual valid reasons other than to have them is yeah.
And it is a good second system type of system.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my son actually.
Ooh.
We're getting some feedback there.
Okay.
My son actually traded in his OG Switch because he wanted the handheld version, so he traded that one in. My wife got hers; she got the Lite, and then I still have the OG version. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised about it either. I think Nintendo knows its audience, and they know that a lot of us are, collector fans. So whether it's Joy-Cons or whole new Switch units, when you see those lovely colors on display at the shops, it's awfully tempting, especially if they've priced it so it can be a kind of a spontaneous buy as well, right? I mean, just about for people. So yeah, I think it stands to reason. But one of my own kids is thinking of venturing into the gaming space. He's 10, and there's no way I'm letting him get his hands on my Switch. So I think there's a lot of us who are thinking, okay, if we're going to do the family thing, a Switch Lite is the right way to go, especially for the younger ones. So I think it makes sense, and I think it's good business strategy as well, right? I mean, I think they need to keep growing their hardware sales, and PlayStation did it with the PS4 Pro, Xbox did it with the Xbox One X, and in terms of just making more things available and selling to the same people again. So I think it's all good from Nintendo, and it makes sense to me.
Yeah, we talked about a few weeks ago that Nintendo sold, like, what was it, 10 million Switches or in the last quarter or something? Maybe not that.
Yeah.
Was it that much? But yeah, and most of that is from holiday sales and the Switch Lite launch. So it's just crazy. So
yeah, and what they said they're not doing another Switch model or another Switch SKU this year. So I guess that's their message is the Switch Lites are good to go. This is the focus area for the year, and they've kind of set the dog whistle going for all of us to buy it as a second unit. Right? They're clearing the way to any uncertainty getting in the way of buying more Switch Lites. I don't have one. I wonder how it is. Is it a good unit? I mean, I'm not prepared to sacrifice the big TV screen stuff, so I haven't gone down that road myself. But I'm curious if it's a good experience.
I don't own one, but I played one, and I definitely wasn't sold. Like, it is a better handheld system,
yeah,
in ways, but like I just think the OG Switches with a bigger screen is better, like for reading fonts and stuff like that. And people complain about reading fonts anyway, and just imagine that on a smaller screen.
Yeah, especially Dragon Quest that has small fonts. I couldn't play Dragon Quest on handheld. I played 95% on my TV.
But it is a better built handheld system. I've just always got to worry about the Joy-Con drift. As we were talking pre-show, we were talking about Joy-Con drift, and I've already had a good couple of send-offs to Nintendo, so I wouldn't want to risk it with a Switch Lite.
Yeah, that would be a nightmare in a Switch Lite for sure. Transferring your profile is never easy at the best of times.
Yeah.
For a dodgy Joy-Con drift, that would be a massive headache. But I hear good things about it, but I just haven't been tempted to try it myself for all of these reasons, basically. Looks good, though.
Yeah, main reason why I haven't gone with the Lite is because I do too many recordings and streams, so I need the OG.
Yeah, I'm holding out for a Pro when that comes out one of these days. That's what I'm jonesing for from a hardware upgrade perspective.
I will
Yeah.
definitely upgrade to that when that comes out.
Yeah.
I think I've said that on the show once before already.
Yeah, and Marty's been using his light a lot, and he seems to have been enjoying it. And he's been switching, if I understand correctly, he does switch a lot between the OG one and the light when he travels more. He takes it on the go, but then when he needs to do a recording, he'll go and use the OG. So, or the Switch Fat.
Does it have Does it have a pretty instantaneous switch of your game saves between the two units, or if you got to do some fancy, upload, download? I'm officially moving to my new unit now. I mean, I'm just curious if it's a simultaneous experience.
I haven't done it myself, but my understanding is you do have to traverse some menus around to tell Switch 1 to transfer this game's save file to Switch 2, and have Switch 2 to receive it. And then
that sounds like the Nintendo I know and love. That sounds about right.
Very much
it's
so.
Tedious. It's doable, and people are saying that it works.
If it's a cloud save capable game, it's probably faster, but you still have to go in and tell the cloud to update it from the cloud, and then push it when you're done. So it's still not 100% smooth.
All they need is that little Pikmin carrying the little baubles across, like with the old 3DS, right? That sounds about like a Nintendo situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Last time I did one of those transfers, it was like a 45-minute thing because I had so much data.
Oh man.
Oh boy. And my daughter is asking if I'm awake. I'm like, yes, I'm recording. Okay.
Right, I was looking for the numbers, but I can't seem to. It's total numbers for the Switch Lite. It's not telling me.
I don't think they've released the numbers split out yet. Maybe at the end of the fiscal year, so we won't know until April.
Oh, it was in their report. I'm looking at it right now. There's Nintendo Switches, the Americas had up till December 2019, 476. What is that? 1,000? Yeah, in the tens of thousands. So 4 million. Is that 4,760,000?
I don't know why they grouped them in 10,000s because that is confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then the lights were 2,090,000.
Okay.
So in North America. And then Europe had 4,790,000. Or did I read that wrong? Okay, so no, America was 6,850,000 regular Switch or total switches. Oh my goodness, I'm bouncing all over the place. Never mind, I'm gonna stop reading this one. Too hard to read this document report.
You know what you need? You need an update on your brain training.
Yes, once it comes here in the U.S., sure.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next report or news item. Pokemon Home has released in the across everywhere, I think, right? So.
Yeah, I think it's worldwide. It's
free and premium tiers.
It originally launched on. You can download it on the Switch, and then it originally was of. You can download them on mobile if you knew the URL, but they weren't searching yet. And then I think they're all searchable now. And I haven't downloaded it myself, and I honestly have no plans to. But my son has already downloaded it, and he dumped his Grookey collection. He had like 15 boxes full from when he was doing egg hatching. Transferred them all into Home, and started collecting all of his legendaries into Home. So I was able to see, which ones. It's very clearly marked which ones cannot be sent back to the games. There's like this big, red circle with a slash through it. So, and then some of them will have like a yellow caution exclamation mark symbol. I think those are Pokemon that are compatible, but they have moves that are been deprecated. So that when you transform over, be missing a move or just be randomly assigned a different move or something. I'm not sure how they handle it. But so that a little warning saying that data will change, and once it's changed, it will not be unchanged.
It's great that the Pokemon Company are letting you transfer stuff throughout these generations, right? Where other games just don't do it.
It's amazing.
For all the moaning and stuff about the what they called the Dexit, not having the national Dex and all this stuff, was like, I understand it, but at the same time, like it's got to be a lot of work transferring so many Pokemon, so many characters from generation to generation. But at the same time, it's so broken, right? Because of these reasons, like you say, moves get changed a lot, and stats get changed on these, and all sorts. So
because as a programmer, I'm thinking of this as every generation probably has a slightly modified data structure that Home has to know about and have a conversion to go from older to newer, and which is why then you can't go back. So like once something even from Let's Go, once you put it into, if it goes from Let's Go Eevee to Home, it can go into Pikachu, but once it goes to Sword, you can't go back to either Pikachu or Eevee because that'll change the data.
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of work behind the scenes on this. Like you got to appreciate that, and even if it is a bit broken, like it's just a miracle that they get this sort of stuff working in the first place, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, being able to go back to all those old games one way or another, going through bank or whatever to get it to Home is amazing. To be able to, like you said, just the connectivity between all of these games over the years is truly amazing.
Yeah.
And I was saying too that I thought that the Home was going to be the new national Dex. So because we didn't get it in this new game.
That's effectively what they are doing at least right now. Because I don't know if we'll ever have a game that has a full Dex again. Home is your Dex.
Right.
Yeah.
As much as people don't want to hear that, sorry.
Well, that's what I kept trying to ask everybody, but nobody didn't want to hear it when I was asking. Like when everybody was up in arms about the not getting the full Dex, I was like, well, isn't that what Home's for? But nobody,
Right.
I just kind of got brushed off.
And even Sun and Moon is kind of the start of that. While every Pokemon every Pokemon up to that point could have been in those games, there was no national Dex. In previous games, you finished the regional Dex, and then they upgraded you to the national Dex. But there was no national Dex in those games.
Right.
And now it's actually it's restricting access to some Pokemon. It is what it is.
Kind of off on a side note, with everybody complaining before the game came out about this, and we were just wondering, with all the huge sales that they had on it, was it 16 million copies sold between the time it was released and that report? And everybody was kind of wondering, well, everybody was complaining, but then they still bought it. Well, I was thinking we have...
Yeah, that was like 6 weeks.
Is it possible that because we have so many Switches sold and so many Pokemon people that, yes, there was a loud vocal people that probably were upset and didn't like it and maybe didn't even buy it, but there were still a large majority of people who weren't talking about it or didn't care and still went out and bought it?
It was the vocal minority.
Yeah, this is gaming as a whole, right? I mean, we are the minority doing stuff like this. The people who have the conversations, keep up with the news and stuff. We are a small fraction of the entire market, right? There's so many moms for kids who don't know anything about news and stuff. They just go into the thing. Oh, look at this character on this box. My son might like this. My daughter might like this, and pick it up and have no idea about this stuff. And you got to cater. These companies have to cater for this, right? They have to please their fans, but their fans are a small fraction sometimes, and I'm sure that's the case with Pokemon.
Yeah, which could probably speak to also everybody, all of us fans, really hungry for Nintendo to give information, and we haven't gotten it yet, right? So, but Nintendo taking their time because, as a market as a whole, they know they don't need to really do anything just yet. I would think, right?
Right. Yeah. Slight off topic, but still related to Pokemon. I remember someone in the Discord asked me if Pokemon was in my Game of the Year discussions, and I said, for me, no, because the game didn't hook me, and really, and I told them it probably never will again unless they really start pushing the boundaries, which,
Yeah.
as I said before, they need to take 2 years off in order to do that, and I don't think they're willing to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, what they're doing sells, as much as people don't want to hear it. Again, it is what it is.
I'd say what I'm most surprised about, just looking at it a little bit, is that Pokemon Home is not the same thing as Pokemon Bank. You have to be some sort of software wizard to get all of your Pokemon from the various platforms ultimately into Pokemon Home, from what I can see.
Yeah, anything in the DS, or I think DS or 3DS, you have to transfer to Bank, which is still a subscription of $5 a year. So you have to have subscriptions to both in order to do this.
Wow.
And then once you have it in Bank, you can transfer it into Home, and then do everything else with it you can from there.
I mean, I suppose the subscription costs are relatively low-ish, but I mean, they start to pile up over time, right? And there's a lot of inefficiency in there as well, in terms of remember to renew this, don't forget to renew that. And imagine if you got a bunch in Bank and you forgot about it. I mean, it feels like it's fraught with risk. But I was asking one of my kids if they were going to get it, because I dabble in the Pokemons, but I'm not maniacal about it. Whereas my older son, he is. He's played a lot of the games over the years, and he told me that. And he's not, by the way, he gets these things. He's quite clever on the software systems. He says, he just likes to catch them all with every new game. So there's going to be that kind of audience as well. But it's wow, what a hassle to move everything from the different platforms into the different software systems, get those connected. You need a whole multi-page guide to make it happen.
And I've seen those multi-page guides.
Yeah,
they exist.
When Leaf Green and Fire Red came out, I went to 2 events. So I got an original Deoxys and original Mew. And there's no way they're ever leaving those games now, because
right. Yeah.
I'm not going through all that just to get them onto this new system.
It's even worse to get them off of Gen 3, because you have to go through from 3 to Gen 4 on a DS, a non-DSi DS, because you need to have the cartridge in the game. On the bottom, and then transfer that to Bank. And
Yes, I'll forget that. I mean, especially being as Mew and Deoxys are released like every other day now, with the way Pokemon is with its legendaries.
Mm-hmm. Especially if I don't think you can. They'll let you transfer Mew out of Pokemon Go, but definitely if you have a Deoxys, that's definitely transferable. Though Go isn't compatible yet, but will be in the future.
Mm.
All right. Well, let's get on to the next news item. We got Animal Crossing New Horizons will support the Switch Online smartphone app. What can we expect from it? What do you think it's going to do?
A lot of people are ignoring it and using Skype.
All right.
Yeah. I uninstalled that app. I have absolutely no use for it. Like, everybody was saying, I think there was a lot of defenders when Splatoon used it and you could buy all the gear off it. Like, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing for 10 minutes, and then once the novelty wore off, that was it. Like, I never used it again. Never used it for voice chat again, because it was way worse than Discord was. I think they're clinging onto this app, and it's clearly not working, so I don't know why they don't just drop it now. What are you guys' opinions on it? Are you as negative towards it as I am?
Yeah, you go ahead.
I was going to say I don't use it much either. I think there could be a lot more capability they could give to it. Especially one idea I had before was taking what they did in with Smash Brothers with the video content and being able to connect it with the app. I thought would have been a lot more usable, and also being able to utilize the app to do more between the games as far as sharing and things like that. So
okay, sorry,
Dave. Go ahead. Go on.
I was going to say, I'm just reading a quick story about this on NintendoLife.com, and the first line of the story is, "It's easy to forget the Switch Online smartphone app is a thing." And
That's
the
what
first.
got pulled up here too.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And the only speculation about what it might do is that it might allow some sort of voice chat, in-game voice chat, which just makes me laugh because I don't think I would want to ever talk to anybody in Animal Crossing except to say, "Get off my island and stop chopping down my trees." You know.
Stop
Yes.
burying boots that you fished up. Well, you see, I mean, I'm an Xbox owner, right? And they have their own app, which a lot of people don't ever talk about. And their app is really, really good. I mean, even little things like using it as a remote, you can do that. You can navigate the system. You can talk on party chat. So if people are on Fortnite, say, and they're using the Xbox built-in chat, you'll know any of your system. You can still talk to them.
Yeah,
Nintendo's
PlayStation
is
has an app too.
Nintendo's is so hardwired into the actual game that it just loses all relevant, right? Yeah, I mean, you want a party chat. You want to be able to chat with people on games when they're not in your team. Like,
Okay.
I tried it with Splatoon, and it keeps partnering you off into your own teams. It's terrible. I
The
want to
the difference,
someone.
the difference is Microsoft and Sony are doing this at the system level. Nintendo's doing it at the game level.
Yeah.
And I think they may have wanted to avoid it at the system level to preserve system resources, but really, voice chat I don't think is that intensive.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing with the Switch, right? Because
The DS can do it.
This is gonna rub some people the wrong way when I say this, I think. But this is the thing with the Switch. It's got an amazing library of games. It's a really good hybrid console, right? It's great as a handheld, but it's terrible as a home system. It's really bad as a home system.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's got
No
so
doubt.
many features missing. The Joy-Cons are terrible. They break all the time. The build quality of the actual system's really bad as well. And to me, the worst thing, regardless of all the badly built parts and stuff that are on the Switch. I mean, you turn mine on now and it says like an airplane taking off until the fan warms up. But the worst thing they ever did was the voice chat, right? It's great when you play Fortnite and Paladins and all that sort of stuff, and you can just plug a headphone in. It's brilliant. It's great. Why not? Why just not unlock that for everything else, right?
And
Yeah.
it wouldn't be too hard to do. It's just a firmware update should make that available.
Well,
Yeah.
there's nothing more condemning about this than the fact that they've announced the compatibility and not bothered to say what it's going to do. That says everything for me, actually.
Or, you know what? Probably what I think it is, now that I think about it, Nintendo doesn't want to pay the licensing fee on that. They wanted to leave it to the developers to do it at the game level instead of the system level.
So I mean, this,
Well,
going back to this.
Nintendo's done this before. 3DSs originally could play MP3s, and they took out that capability because they didn't want to pay the licensing fees per unit.
Oh.
I mean, going back to this, right? It's great, I suppose, that there is some sort of extra stuff to Animal Crossing, but again, we don't know what it is. But we don't know what's going on with Animal Crossing anyway, right? We know little tidbits that come out here and there, but for the majority, we're still in the dark about a game that's coming out pretty soon. So it'll be interesting to
5
see.
weeks.
Like, I want them to make the app good. I do. I want stuff to do on the app. Like, I remember having, I don't know if it still works with the Switch version, but Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and you could play a mini game on the go. Like, that's what it needs. Little fun mini games that have some sort of connectivity to the main game. Brilliant.
It's like the little Dreamcast thing that comes out of the controller.
Oh man, that thing was the best. I tell you.
In the chat, Deontay says that he would like to see the Switch Online app updated to access eShop.
Yeah, just that. Right. We can do
Which
do that
is
on
not
the
hard.
website.
Just open. Yeah, it's a browser already. So just open a browser to Nintendo.com, or what it would vary by region. But yeah, I buy most of my games through the website and then just say push it to my Switch. I buy very few games from the Switch directly.
And like one thing that I do on the website quite a lot is this is a little bit of inside baseball, as you guys would say it. I don't know what we'd say, inside football. That just sounds wrong. But basically, you get codes if you're reviewing games, right? And I redeem them through the website. which you could also do on an app if they did an app. So, yeah, I think that the base level app is like missing the most basic features, which is to be able to look at your account and buy stuff.
I'm not sure we can redeem codes on the website in North America. I know that we.
Yeah, we can. I do it all the time.
Okay, I must have never seen that function. Like, I used to do it all the time on the Wii U, but I've never tried it on the Switch.
It's hard to navigate to the initial page. Once you get there, you need to bookmark it.
Yeah, I bookmarked it because of that reason. Yes. So, but speaking of which, the differences, especially because signing up for a UK profile and a Japanese profile, I can see some of each one of those, how each one of those regions does the eShop, or at least the website version. And there's still a lot of things like between. I'm sure you guys could say the same thing for you guys, what you see in North America's version that you guys could be missing. But it seems like there's no consistency between each of those, how they present the information online, where if you go to Xbox, there's a consistent message. If you go to PlayStation, there's a consistent message. It's very frustrating to see you got 3 different regions with 3 different messages or 3 different ways of presenting that same information, where I think we've kind of got beyond that. I understand why they did it back in the day, but I think they're
even in eShop, sometimes they'll slow roll a new menu item, like it'll appear in Japan first. So like I normally figure out what I want to do by looking at an English eShop first, then going to Japan and following the steps, and then I'll see an extra item. I'm like, oh crap, which one do I want now? Is it the 5th from the top or the 2nd from the bottom?
Yeah, there's a difference between the European and American one, right? And I think it's just the wording that they use. Wasn't what we have? One of us has current offers, and the other one has sales.
And I think for a while you had featured apps and featured games, and we didn't. I think we do now, but for a while we didn't.
Yeah, maybe one of these times when I can find the time, I'll try to show the differences that I noticed, try to compare it, but. That's pretty much it for that news item. We just need to find out more about the game.
Yeah, we do. We really do. And I mean, all these leakers at the minute are like, oh yeah, this is direct next week. What? Oh no, it's next week. Oh, hang on. No. Sorry. I got the wrong way. It's next week.
No, 1 more week.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna just mention these 3 last few topics real quick because they made somebody voted on them. So but I know we need to get to David's topic. So the last 3 items that we got voted on was Nintendo Switch lounges coming to U.S. airports, only 4, and of course 1 in Seattle, 1 in Chicago, 1 in Dallas, and I forget the 4th one where that one is. But they look pretty cool. There is on the U.S. site under what's new more information on that. You can check it out. Looks interesting, and I think if you go there, you get something free. I think even a code, a $10 coupon from Target to use on a Nintendo purchase of $75 or more.
Oh, yeah. They want you to buy 2. So does 2 games count, or does that mean you have to buy the game Switch?
Right. Yes. Oh, and the other one is Washington D.C. Dulles, the airport in Die Hard 2. So.
Well, I'm sort of bullish about this one in the sense that I'm kind of excited by it as a thing because I'm massively cheered up whenever I walk past a Nintendo display anywhere in the world, and to have them in airports feels like a good thing to me, and those are good airports to have those. But I'm looking at a picture of one of these online, and the sparkly new, happy-looking, comfortable Switch zones that are in the models look great, but I can't help but wonder what they'll look like after about 3 months of people having their Big Macs and Cokes, and I have to maintain them. I think
I mean, if you ever go to any gaming events and those are just like 3 days long, by the time when the last day rolls around, the controllers are battered, like they are wrecked. So I can't imagine what these are going to look like, especially when everybody likes a pre-flight Burger King. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's a good idea from a visibility perspective, and they will cheer me up. So I'm excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for Dave, you sound like somebody who travels a lot and with business and stuff, so I'm sure I could definitely see that being a positive for you. I probably travel on business probably once a year, if I'm lucky, maybe two.
Yeah.
And to none of those airports. So, but they're only going till the end of March, so who knows? Maybe they'll move the airports around too. And there was one other thing I caught too that you get if you decide to order something while you're there, a Nintendo Switch or a Lite, you receive a free carrying case with your order.
Oh, nice.
All right, moving on to the next one. We've got our latest additions to NES, SNES, Nintendo Switch Online games. And that would be...
And before you say them, the fact that it was the second to lowest voted item, probably a hint that people don't care.
Yes. According to Eurogamer.net, the 4 games we got is, what is that, Super Tennis? If I can read that right, it's blocked. Number 2, meanwhile, is that... I can't see it. All right, so the other one is Poppin' Twin B.
Oh my goodness.
Those are Super Nintendo games, and then for NES, there's Eliminator, Boat Duel, and Shadow of the Ninja.
Yeah, they have scraped the bottom of the barrel, burst through the bottom of the barrel. They're under the table and in the basement. I have no idea what's going on here.
I don't think I've heard of any of these.
Oh.
I've heard of Twin B. I didn't realize there was a sequel.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, you know what I really want them to do at this point, and I wish they would do it, and I don't understand what's going on, but NES Remix on was it 3DS, I think? The remix, those were amazing. So if they want to, go through the a little bit of that catalog differently, why not bring the remixes over,
They're the two ports I really want.
Yeah.
I really do. They were really good.
They were masterful. They reimagined the best parts of the gameplay of some of these older games. They cut them up in interesting ways. There has to have been a lot of work that went into all of that. So if they're going to bring over Pop and Twin B, just give me the remixes. What are we doing here?
Yeah, they even and for people who hasn't never played the original game, going through the little mini games taught you some of the tricks in it, including like turtle tipping in the original Super Mario Brothers. Well,
that's right.
I don't think I could have passed. I don't think I ever passed that challenge, which is why I stopped playing. But I used to be able to. I know I used to do it when I was a kid, but I just couldn't do it again when the remix was out.
According to the article 2, Breath of Fire 2 is what's coming over to Japan instead of the Super Family Tennis.
I would trade all 4 of those games just for that one.
Have you played Breath of Fire 2? I don't know what that is. Sounds like something on a Saturday night to me. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, we'll I'll tell you what. We'll get you some beers in. We'll send you some beers and play that. That's a Saturday night.
They also are saying Sunsoft side-scrolling platformer Atlantis No Nazo, and also SNK's action-adventure Godslayer for the NES. Those are 2 NES games for the Japan side. So that's what's coming over soon, next Wednesday. All right, and then the last one is Jeff Keighley will be skipping E3. Not a lot of votes for that one. I think 1 vote for that one, but it was pretty popular on Twitter today. So, but he has decided, based on news that he was aware of, I guess, from the post that I saw, that he would not be attending. He chose not to attend E3. He said a ton of factors why he didn't choose to go. I just don't really feel comfortable participating, given what I know about the show as of today. That's what his comment was.
My problem with this one is I think it's very cynical because he's running his own Game Awards stuff these days. It's a different time of year. It's December. It's completely in his wheelhouse to dump all over E3 because he's got his own competing thing going on. Yeah. It just feels cynical to me. And I don't have any beef with Jeff Keighley per se, but when you look at his business interests, dropping a bomb on E3 and getting this attention serves his needs so well. And I don't think he's declaring a conflict of interest here. So I would just move on, because not on the story, but in terms of seeing it on Twitter, because it feels so, sort of conflict of interest for me, frankly.
And I mean, this reminds me of something that happened last year as well. Ninja left Twitch to go to Mixer. Nobody cares. Everyone's still on Twitch, right? Jeff Keighley doesn't go to E3. What's that got to do with me? What's that got to do with you?
Right.
Jeff Keighley's just not going to E3. Does it really matter that much? It's one person. Like,
the
many people involved.
The people that it may impact are the people not going to E3, watching the coverage that's streamed over the internet on the show that Keighley used to host and would bring in people for interviews. I'm sure they're still going to do that, and someone else is going to have to host it. But
Jessica Chobot.
But this is the thing, you see, because if you say to somebody, right, say he's hosting it in 2007. What happened in E3 2007? People go, Halo, Zelda, something got announced. Who goes? Jeff Keighley did an amazing job at hosting, right? Nobody cares. It's nothing to do with Jeff Keighley, in my opinion, right? Look, I like the guy. I think the Game Awards are great. I defended them heavily this year, right?
I thought they were good too. Absolutely, yeah.
But
the biggest part, the biggest news of this is this. I think he has been to every E3, up to this point, and this is the first one he's not going to. That's like the main reason why it's newsworthy.
I mean, I do think there's an interesting discussion around, is E3 dying, which everybody's talking about, obviously, all over the place. And this will be cited as evidence that it's on its last couple of legs here, or last couple of go-rounds. And maybe it is, who knows, right? But for me, what happens to E3 is way more interesting than whether Jeff Keighley goes or not. It's just a little footnote to the story, I think.
I mean, that's the thing, you see, because people are reading way too much into this tweet as well. It could be that they didn't want to pay him as much.
Yeah,
that could be it.
I was thinking that too. I just didn't want to be the first person to say it.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of but this could breed new gaming personalities. We could get a new Jeff Keighley come from this. They could get somebody new, young, to host it, somebody who appeals to a younger generation more. So,
aren't one of you guys going to E3 this year? I thought I saw that on the Patreon.
I am.
You're making a pitch? Yeah, there you go. There's a role for you.
And let's say that this, let's say that this does spell the end for E3. Let's theorize that a second, right? So Jeff Keighley quits because they're shafting Sony, Microsoft, whatever, and then Nintendo's like, you know what? They got shafted. I'm out. Xbox also goes, you know what? Forget this. We're not going to be the only ones here. I'm out. What will happen then is Gamescom will be the new E3 in Germany, right? Because that's probably the next biggest gaming event worldwide. And then the cycle will start again. There was things before E3. There'll be things after E3. There'll be new presenters. There'll be people continuing to do what they do. We will always get games. It will never end. So even if E3 does come to an end, I won't worry about it. We're perfectly fine. Especially Nintendo fans. This is the one that affects us the least, because we have a video.
No, that's right. I was just about to say that the thing that will kill E3, and insofar as Nintendo fans would even care anymore, but the thing that will kill it is if Xbox had their big coming out party this year at E3, which they've said they'll do, right? They're going to be all over E3 as well. I think what they've said, even if it's just down the street in the theater or whatever, they tend to have some sort of visible presence there, and they've been very supportive about it publicly. But if that happens and they lose the console sales to PS5, I think that's it. Because then if PlayStation don't go at all, Xbox show up and give some kind of support, and they still lose the big console war at the end of this year, I think that's it for E3.
Yeah, I think that's what they did last year, and they're planning on doing this year. Is they won't be in the show floor, but they'll be down the street. They'll be down the street. I do plan on checking them out at some point, but with everything else I'm doing, I may not even have a chance.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure we collectively wish Jeff Keighley, like, whatever he does, the best, right? So, if he doesn't do E3 anymore, hopefully the Game Awards continues to grow for him, because he seems pretty cool, right? He's done some good stuff for the community and all that, and gaming as a whole and stuff. But I think this is one of those things where people have took way too much, read too much into it. Like, there'll just be someone else presenting, and that's it.
Greg Miller
asks, Ibisol asks, E3 shut down for a couple of years, right? I don't think it ever fully shut down, but for a few years, it was really trimmed down to really down to just a few thousand people. It is industry only. There would it always meant to be industry only, and even then it would bring 30 to 40,000 people. But this is down to less than 10,000. So smaller groups who used to be able to go were unable to go. And then it was around the early 2010s is when they started ramping up again. So I was,
It's funny how we've managed to have quite a decent conversation out of this, and quite a long one, lengthy one, considering it's the least voted for news article of the week.
Apparently, if we would have voted, we would have probably voted for that one to talk about.
I think this would have been my top one, just because, I think that it is hysteria. It's just like the direct drought is causing a bit of hysteria at the minute. But I mean, this just goes to show the future of gaming and media as a general, right? The internet's accessible to everyone. Everyone has push notifications. So why not just do a video rather than spend millions and millions and millions converting a convention center for the couple of thousand people that turn up, when you could have your millions of people worldwide tune into something instead?
Well, I'm sure that we could spend a lot of time talking about E3, maybe even recommendations and how we could fix it. But I don't know if we have enough time for this show to do that. Maybe I could do it on the dinner table show where we talk about how we could fix E3.
That's a good idea. Lots of ideas for that. That's a good idea.
So, next, normally on the docket, we would have rumors. We're going to say Nintendo Direct next week, right? Because that's been a rumor for the last God knows how long. So.
Yes, rumor. My uncle at Nintendo says for sure next week.
Yeah, next week on a Tuesday or a Thursday.
Yes. So, but before we get into what we've been playing, I believe, David, you brought us a topic.
Yeah, I thought it would be interesting to at least discuss here on the podcast, maybe get some feedback from folks who are maybe joining through Discord around a pretty, I thought, stunningly insightful, interesting little nuggets of information podcast that went out. It was little remarked upon at the time. Featuring Reggie Fils-Aimé joining a podcast called Present Value. This podcast, I think, looking at it, got recorded before Christmas, sometime in the middle of December. I can't quite tell when it got put out on podcast services. It looks like end of December, maybe early January. But it's a podcast where Reggie Fils-Aimé talks about, it's only a 55-minute podcast. It's not that long, but coherently and pretty compellingly about what he did at Nintendo between when he joined NOA in 2003 and when he retired in April of last year. And if you think of that 15, 16-year period as being maybe the second golden age of Nintendo, not without its potholes. They do talk about the Wii U, by the way. But it's that interview with Reggie Fils-Aimé is well worth a listen. And if people have a chance, I'd recommend they do it. But if they don't, I pulled out of there, the sort of top 5 most interesting things that Reggie had to say about his time at Nintendo. And it's kind of fascinating because, he is pretty charismatic when he's talking. He's clearly a very smart guy, and not just in a corporate way. He's just clearly pretty brilliant, frankly. And he's very very clear and lucid about what he was doing and what he was trying to do when he was at Nintendo for all those years. And I think that's interesting as well because Nintendo, for me, and a lifelong fan of all the different consoles and the company as a whole and the games and the software, still don't really let you know a lot. In the Nintendo Directs they do, and the ones they did when Iwata was around, they're fun, they're cute, they open up, but it's always in a controlled way. You don't really know what's happening inside Kyoto Towers there and what they're thinking. And he actually lets loose a little bit. So a few words about the podcast. It's a podcast that is hosted and presented by various kind of MBA students who are over at Cornell University at one of their graduate schools. They release about one podcast a month. Mostly they're featuring lecturers and university stars, but he's there because he's joined the school there as what they call a leader in residence at the Dyson School over at Cornell. So he's he's clearly being interviewed on the podcast in his capacity as a leader in residence at the university, but he's of course talking about Nintendo as well as some of the work he did at Pizza Hut, MTV, and so on. So it's well worth a listen. But I did note some of what I thought were the 5 most interesting things he had to talk about, in case listeners here don't have a chance to get into it or can't find it maybe. So I thought it'd be worth talking about. Did you guys get a chance to listen to it?
I had no idea about it at all.
Yes, I did. I listened to it before, and it's actually, I have it saved to listen to again because there were so many good nuggets in that podcast.
Yes. So I've actually listened to it twice, Tim, to your point. The first time I listened to it, I was like, this will just be interesting, because I saw some reference to it in a story online somewhere. But I've listened to it 2 times now because he's letting a lot out. And if you actually marry up what he's talking about with the knowledge we all have of the time and what happens at Nintendo, it's actually pretty interesting if you start to make some inferences about what's really going on. Yeah. So do you want me to give you my top 5 most interesting things here?
Sure. And before you start, just to let everybody know, the podcast is called Present Value Podcast. So if you want to look it up and listen to that, it was, like I said, for fans of Reggie, it's a great listen, but also for anybody who wants to get into the same field in PR, communications, marketing, I think it's great business views on that side as well.
Very good. So here's my top 5 interesting Reggie facts, or at least Nintendo facts via Reggie from least exciting to most exciting, at least to me personally. So the 5th one I noticed here is the Switch would definitely not exist in its form that we have today had there not been a Wii U. And I'll always remember the podcast you guys did back before the Switch came out, when it was still called the NX or whatever. And I think you had Adam Lennart and others doing designs as what it would look like, and there was a lot of speculation, right? I think, interestingly, everybody was thinking back then the Switch would follow the 3DS, right, in terms of design and aesthetic. So we can guess that the Switch is the successor to Wii U in form and function, but it's a guess, right? But he's actually confirmed in this podcast that, and it's an interesting couple of moments in the podcast too, that Nintendo had an absolutely massive, colossal moment of crisis around the Wii U, where they had to really go back to the well and think about what was going on here. And the one takeaway they had from the Wii U was that they got so many complaints about the fact that the Wii U tablet stopped working 30 feet away from the console, that became the inspiration for what the Switch became. And hearing him talking about that, while we could guess that, is pretty interesting as a confirmation fact that the Switch that we all know and love, there's such a runaway success in the market, wouldn't exist without the Wii U.
Yeah, that was great to hear that.
Yeah, so that was pretty fascinating. The next thing,
validation, right? It was validation.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I fired up my Wii U the other day, actually, before I listened to the podcast, and it's still a great machine. So if you're a Wii U fan and you were one of the Wii U warriors, it is a kind of validation to know that part of what was great about the Wii U set the base for what is today so successful about the Switch. So it is validation for all those long, hard, lean years without any games, without any friends, on the system. I mean, so it was good to hear.
Yeah, I reacquired my Wii U from my son, so I can record footage for a video I'm working on. So
that's the real Switch fat right there. That's the real Switch fat.
That is. And when you look at the tablet there, you can really see the lineage, right? I mean, you can see it's basically a Switch, sort of for 4-year-olds.
Yeah, just get rid of the bezel and you got a Switch Lite.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
And about a 2/3 of the thickness.
Yeah. So he also then went on to talk about elsewhere in the podcast about when he joined in 2003, 2004. That was the time when the GameCube was the prevalent system. He himself had not even bought a GameCube. He only had an N64. I say only as a fan, right? So he'd interviewed for the job. Even he as a gamer didn't have a GameCube, and it was desperate times. And so the next I've written down here is Nintendo dropped between $2 billion and $3 billion to buy back its market share and come back from the dead in 2006 when it released the Wii. And I think, we talk about the famous Nintendo war chest, what they're capable of doing when times are tough. But he talks at some length about how in the U.S. They packaged up Wii Sports with the Wii to give you fun out of the box, as he calls it on the podcast. But he says, and it's fascinating to hear, one of the first things he had to do in Nintendo of America was convince the bosses back in Kyoto to bundle Wii Sports with the Wii. And what he estimates is Wii Sports would have sold for $40 or $50 a piece back in 2003. That sounds about right. And they would have sold about 50 or 60 million copies of it, which is $2 or $3 billion of lost revenue just to get back into the market. And he was saying at the time the PS2 was all dominant, and the Xbox and the GameCube had broadly similar sales, which, if you think about it, is not too different to where we are today, with the Xbox One X and the Switch being comparable in sales and the PS4 being the runaway hit of the generation. So it kind of makes you think what they might do going forward to win back more market share, if they still have that kind of appetite, by the way. I'm not sure that they do. But to hear them having spent $3 billion to get their market share back was pretty interesting. Confirmation those were desperate times.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the single move which arguably made the Wii as popular as it was, right? Because everybody talks about Wii Sports whenever they think about the Wii.
Definitely.
I think we've lost Dave.
So that cost them... Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Right,
sorry, I'm
back.
Still here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
You just froze up for a
sorry,
few
guys.
seconds. You're good.
All right, fantastic. Yeah, so that cost them $3 billion, but it was worth it, right? Because like you're saying, that's what everybody knows about the Wii. Also, he mentioned they only did that in the Americas and Europe. They didn't do it in Japan, which I didn't know. So they really underperformed in Japan with the Wii, apparently. So, number 3 on my list of 5, it was all a ruse all along. He admits that all the memes, all the performances were heavily workshopped inside of Nintendo. My name is Reggie, I'm about kicking ass and I'm about taking names was completely approved by Kyoto. It wasn't a spontaneous moment on stage. Also, my body is ready was something he rehearsed with Bill Trinen endlessly before he went on stage. And again, I think we kind of knew that, but I always like to imagine that he walked out there and said, I'm going to go crazy on this audience, you know? But it was all definitely show business. It was all approved by Kyoto, and a lot of it was workshopped for effect. But it was just interesting to hear him talk about that, because his legacy as a meme machine is something that I think a lot of us are really fond of. But behind the scenes, it was all a ruse.
I wondered if how much of that was scripted and how much of that was on the fly. So I'm kind of not surprised that most of it was scripted.
Yeah, and you got to think the generation that we're in at the minute, like if you can have some meme or internet like something go viral, like that's it. You don't need any other form of marketing. You've done it right there. So that's a really clever move, really.
Yeah.
To say there's something so small as well as saying that you're going to kick ass. Like Duke Nukem said that a long time ago.
Yeah.
But then again, that's what you think of if you think of Duke Nukem, right?
Yeah, that's right. So as you say, clever and ahead of its time too, right? Because they did all those things before social media was a massive phenomenon. So a ruse, but a clever ruse, and so credit to Reggie there. The next one I've got here is, if you think that Nintendo is bent on its own self-destruction, you're right. He talks about going to Kyoto, to one of the main conference rooms they have in the Kyoto headquarters there, where they have a plaque on the wall which says "Make something unique" in kanji, which sounds pretty good. It's the Nintendo we know and love. But then he goes on to talk about failing forward and failing hard. And he says that the reason that he joined Nintendo in the first place is because when he talked to Satoru Iwata about joining the company, they both agreed that they love risk and that they are comfortable with risk. And he goes on to say, if you don't fail, you're not pushing hard enough in your business. So absolutely confirmation that generation of Nintendo leadership was all about pressing the self-destruct button if things got too comfortable. And sometimes it blows up and it's horrible. Sometimes it blows up and it's amazing. But all those weird things they do are absolutely by design philosophically. And so now the Switch has sold, 50, 60 million units, or at least it will soon. Expect the self-destruct button to get pressed soon, was what I took away from that comment.
So that's interesting because, people have probably followed well aware, but that I do Open University at the minute, so I do university part-time. And my course is all about marketing and PR and all that sort of stuff. And one of the things that we learn at the minute is designing, right? This entire year has been about designing. And one of the biggest things that keeps cropping up in videos and lectures that I've watched, and even in the welcome pack that came with the university course, is failing. That they fail on purpose sometimes. And we have these set of cards in the pack that came with the university course, and they're design aid cards. So what you do is you shuffle this pack of cards, pick one randomly, and you should use that towards whatever it is you're designing. And some will say, sleep on it, come back the next day. Some will say, take a walk and think. And the one of them is make it fail. So basically, if you're thinking about, say, the chair that I'm sitting on right now, if you design it to make it fail, so you design it so it's slanted forward, so it's uncomfortable to sit on, that has a purpose. That will then have a purpose because, say, there's actually, saying that, there's actually a toilet. Benches. There's actually a toilet that came out not too long back, a couple of months ago, which is slanted forward, and it's to stop people from slacking at work, sitting on the toilet on their phone. Because you sit on it and you get so uncomfortable after 10 minutes that you'll want to come off it. So by failing, you've actually succeeded in solving someone else's problem. And I think that it's good for like media and hardware and stuff like that, because without that risk, you would have never have had something like motion controls. You would have never have had like the hybrid system that we got now. And for every mistake that the Wii U made, right, you've already spoke about it, but it made a success somewhere else. So even if that product failed, it had a knock-on effect to succeed somewhere else.
Yeah, well, they are succeeding spectacularly with failing on the mobile app. So at least that explains some of that stuff, right?
But then again, they failed with Mario, but they've brought it back by doing a different pay system everywhere else. They tried it and it didn't work. So
I think he was talking about NSO on the NSO app.
Yeah. Sorry, just that one in particular. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant just in mobile in general. I was going to say, they fail with Mario, and that's bred like a subscription service, which everybody loves.
Yeah, he says the moment that he
for those who not watching on YouTube, he just had the funniest looking face as he said that. Right.
But on that second to last point, he says he and Iwata forged their bond in their first interview call because Iwata said, "Nintendo doesn't run away from risk, we run towards it," which filled me a little bit with awe and a little bit with fear.
So that's so heroic. It's such a heroic quote. Like that's something we could all dream of having on our gravestones one day.
Me working at a bank, you would never hear any executive say that.
No.
Yeah, exactly. It does sound like something that would be on your gravestone, right? He didn't run away from risk. It turns out he ran towards it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how pink slips get written out.
Yeah. And so last for me on that podcast, and again, I encourage everybody to listen to it. It's fascinating. But Reggie's story of taking on the Japanese establishment to get his job is worth listening to alone. He would have been interviewing for his job. I did a bit of research on this with a guy called Minoru Arakawa, who was the president of Nintendo of America at the time that he joined in 2002, 2003, that sort of time. And in the interview process, he demanded to speak to the president of Nintendo itself. Which, of course, was Satoru Iwata. But the guy he would have been going over the head of, this Minoru Arakawa guy, was a player in the Japanese scene. And he doesn't talk about this in the podcast, but when you hear him talking about the process, you can hear how tense this was as a moment in his life. Minoru Arakawa was the Nintendo of America president who, of course, was credited with naming Mario. It was his landlord who was called Mario. He was married to the daughter of Hiroshi Yamauchi, who was the third president of Nintendo. So, I mean, that is a time in Japanese business history when things were tight,
Yeah, and it was a family company.
And it was a family company. And to go and to say to that person, I'm sorry, I can't accept your job until I talk to the big guy in Japan. I mean, that's a big moment. And his story about that is absolutely fascinating. So Reggie was a hardcore player, and Nintendo was apparently in dire straits and desperately needed him, and he played that for all it was worth in the interview process. And if you're ever interviewing for a job or making a big move in your life, listening to him talking about how he took on the Nintendo establishment and some of the fallout from that is absolutely fascinating. So Reggie was a player. We thought it going in, you know it coming out.
Yeah. So totally kids, if you're listening right now and you're going for your first job, just walk into that McDonald's. I want to see the big guy. Who are you? You're not Ronald.
Where's Ronald McDonald? Where's the clown?
Nice. So
Yeah, I think you can do all that if you actually went to the same university as well. So just make sure you've got the credentials on your resume first, I guess.
yeah. So I downloaded the podcast. I'll give this a listen at some point. For those checking it out, again, it's the Present Value Podcast. It is episode 26, which has a release date, a publication date of December 28th. To help in your search. Okay, so
Thanks for bringing that, David.
Yes, no, my pleasure.
All right, so let's talk about what we've been playing. Okay, and let's start with our guests. We always start with our guests first. So, David, what have you been playing?
All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to start with one non-Nintendo game for a good reason, and then talk about what I'm playing on the Switch at the moment. So,
that's perfectly fine.
All right. Well, earlier this year, I finished Death Stranding. It was my 6th ever platinum on the PS4, and actually, Gary and I swapped a couple of notes about this on Twitter as well. I absolutely loved Death Stranding, and it's one of those games that, of course, if you haven't got a PS4, you won't be able to play, but it divides the audiences. The reason I want to mention it here is one of the reasons why I fell in love with it so much. About 5 or 6 hours in, it struck me like a bolt of lightning that it's absolutely a love letter to Breath of the Wild. So much of the gameplay, so many of the mechanics, so much of what Hideo Kojima is doing you can see that the game was being written and developed at the time when Breath of the Wild was hitting the market. Because if you can see it, you can go there. There's hot springs action going on, just like you go into the volcano. So it's very much an industrial strength Breath of the Wild. And if anybody's on the fence about playing it who has access to play it, you like Breath of the Wild, and you wonder what it looks like with big mechs involved and warfare with crazy dead things, it's worth giving it a play. But I love that game, and it's very Nintendo friendly, I would say, if you're of that mindset.
And jarred babies.
Yeah, but don't be put off by the wacky stuff. It's mostly a chilled, relaxing. I listened to about 100 hours of podcasts while I was playing because you can do that, And if you need something to play to zone out for a while and listen to some podcasts but still be having a good time, that is the game to go for. But it's not Nintendo, so I just wanted to mention it in passing. I am still I'm still limping along with Pokemon Go. All of my friends are gray on the system. Even Justin isn't sending me presents anymore, so I'm thinking it might be time to pack it in soon. But still on Pokemon Go, still enjoying it, still fun to walk around with. That is the single longest time I've ever played a game in terms of duration. I started it when it came out, still playing it now, so probably worth mentioning, I think. I'm giving Brain Age a go on my Switch. I know you haven't got it in the US yet, but of course we have it here in Europe. It confirms that I am 46 years old, apparently in real life, and 79 years old in my brain. So it's a crushing blow to my self-esteem, but I'm striving to get to 75. And otherwise, I did also want to mention, guys, 2 other games that I'm playing. Spider Solitaire, which is a game that nobody will have heard of. But, every now and again, I go into the Switch and I say, okay, how many coins have I got on my credits here? How do I just blow those coins on something to give it a go? It was about $5 or less. It is actually the most fun solitaire game that I've had, and I'm always a sucker for a solitaire game in a long time. It's not easy. It is kind of testing, actually. It's 2 packs in one, as opposed to 1 deck of cards, or however many deck of cards you normally get in solitaire. But it's actually pretty good fun. I researched it. Nowhere online does it say who the developer or the publisher was. So it is mobile gaming trash, but it's good trash. It's good fun. And the last thing I wanted to mention that I'm playing is The Witcher. The Witcher on Switch. And I have to say, 10 hours in, I am loving The Witcher on Switch. I tried to get into The Witcher on the Xbox when it first came out. I got as far as maybe the first little mini boss in the tutorial section, and I just couldn't get on the bus. I couldn't make it work. I couldn't get my head around it. But it is the perfect game for commuting. It's got short missions, a lot of short missions, some beautiful worlds. the amount of effort that CD Projekt Red have put into making this look and play and feel good on the mobile Switch is absolutely outstanding. So I can't recommend Witcher highly enough. I was trying to find out how many people have even bought this thing. CD Projekt Red have said a few things in their latest company results about it. It sold okay. Apparently, it made them some money in a down year right now, so that's good. But, when you guys were talking last week about EA not porting stuff to Switch, I wanted to call in and shout at you all in a friendly dad way, because EA, it's easy to dump on these guys, and everybody likes doing it, right? But they are 100% right when they say that all of the big sellers on the Switch are Nintendo games. And what the reason I was getting so agitated last week when I was listening, and I was glad I was coming on this week, is because if we as Switch owners don't buy The Witcher, which is lovingly ported, a beautiful game and amazing to play, we don't deserve all these other ports. What are we doing, So I have to urge everybody to get out there and buy some Witcher because it's amazing.
Nice. I actually I looked at the Nintendo website about the Spider Solitaire because they normally post the publisher and the developer, and it says publisher undefined.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That makes me think either they can't be completely unknown. Maybe they just want to stay anonymous. I don't know. Or maybe that's the name of the company, and that would be genius.
Oh, that would be genius. Yeah.
Gary, you look like you wanted to say something in regards to what David said.
Oh no, I completely agree. I've spoke about this on another podcast about EA, and but he said that basically the exact same thing that I said. EA are a massive company; they know exactly what they're doing, and they're completely right. Yeah. It's easy to think that just because a game like Diablo, Dark Souls, The Witcher's out, that it's done really, really well and it's a huge success. And now, if CD Projekt Red are saying it sold okay, then it's not a huge success. It's made money. It's not a huge success. Yeah. So the effort and time and resources, not that got put into it, but got took away from something else, probably wasn't worth it, right?
To quote another YouTuber, they can make the game can make the most money it's ever made, but it is not all the money, so it isn't a success.
Yeah. So basically, that's basically it. Like EA have got their focus somewhere else, and every time a game comes to the Switch, it's not a case of like, turn a slider, downgrade the graphics, because that the Switch could run that sort of game where the graphics have just been lowered really badly. It takes a lot of love and craft, and with those resources taken away from something else, they could lose millions.
Yeah, I mean, look, who knows whether that contributed to the delay of Cyberpunk? It might be a reach to say that what they did on Witcher reporting made them delay Cyberpunk this year. Maybe they would have delayed it anyways, but it's absolutely the right point. I think that they invested a lot of time and effort into it. It is beautiful on the Switch, and it's great. I've played it on both systems, Xbox and Switch, so I know that I can see the downgrades and some of the textures and so on. Not a problem at all. It's an amazing game. And for them to have done that and then not get the payback for it means EA is correct. I mean, I got upset, I suppose, with EA and Ubisoft and others when they didn't support the Switch out of the gate necessarily. And saying things sell okay when a unit has 10 million in the market is kind of understandable. But if we have 50 million of these in the market and Witcher still only sells okay, well, we can't complain about these publishers not bringing stuff over. We just have to kind of get on with life, I think, and enjoy what is good about the Switch. But we need to sort of put the pitches and put the pitchforks down and everything, and just get on with life, I think.
And again, going full round back to the conversation that I had earlier, probably with myself, is that this goes to what I was saying about it not being the best home console, right? Because essentially you got to see this as the Game Boy or the DS. And every once in a while, you did get ports from, the big games like Mario 64 onto the DS, but they were never the same, right? And I think that the Switch is in the same boat. Like, the home consoles are so much stronger than it now that, like, whatever games it gets, and it's a miracle that they run. Such as FIFA, right? We got our own version of FIFA, which is, like, really watered down, but we've had the same thing on all the handhelds. We've always had a FIFA that's really watered down. So it's not any different to how it used to be with the rest of the handheld. It's just now that it's got this like blurred line of being a home console And on top of that, we've also got the internet loud age where everybody wants to make it known.
So I have to say something because, I was the one who is pissed probably most about EA not doing something enough. I think they do something, but not enough. And I'm probably not smart enough to make the argument or to make the counter argument to yours, or think of enough things to counter what you said. What you say is which makes sense. They're a business. They need to make money. From me, I'm looking at it from a consumer perspective, not just a Nintendo fan, a consumer's perspective. And my frustration lies with if you go with The Witcher 3, I completely agree. People should pick it up and show their support to that because it is definitely a superb packaged game, especially with all the stuff it comes with it physically. And if you don't get it physical, you want to get digital, it still sounds like it's a great game.
By the way, to your point, it has all the expansion packs packed in with it.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Complete. And you get a map in there too, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right. Got a map in the physical. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yep. But it's a port, and it's a port to a system that is not known for getting as many people to play a game like this. This is a mature rated game, right? And that for it to do okay is actually probably really well for a family type system. And I know they're trying to get away from that, or at least to a certain extent, but it's still a Nintendo system. What I'd say about the EA thing is that I don't see them trying. I see them just, let's just do this, shove this FIFA game over because we can't do Frostbite on it. We're not going to do anything with tools that we know will work on the system or other systems. We're just going to do the lesser of everything and get it over. And then even to do the 2020 version of FIFA where it was just the same game but upgraded rosters.
Yeah.
It's like
they called it Legacy Edition, which is basically
right.
It's the 2019 build with a roster update and called it 2020.
If people are buying it that way, great. If they're having fun with it, that's great. I don't know because I don't buy FIFA games. I even said before too that I would appreciate a Madden game kind of the same level. Yeah, it's not Frostbite, it's not the glorious graphics that they're building on, but at least try to put something that will work for the audience. That or the device where maybe you go back and say, make it appealing to nostalgia and go, we did really well with Madden 94, 95, 96 on the SNES. We'll take those type of graphics, maybe spruce it up a bit, but put new rosters on and try to sell that.
Yeah, I think, Tim, you and I don't disagree too much in a sort of interesting way, because what I'm saying is CD Projekt Red did all the things that you're saying EA should do with one game that is called the game of the generation for a lot of gamers, right? So they made it fit for purpose. They made it perform well in the system. They didn't do some half-assed job of bringing over a previous framework and putting new names on teams like we did with FIFA, right? So they did everything you're talking about, and not enough people bought it, So I'm just saying, if EA was to put that kind of time and effort in, why would EA get a different result?
Because Witcher is a mature rated game. It's a different audience. It's not going to appeal to a master audience as, say, a sports game. And still, even the sports games are limited. Yes, that is true too. But it's just, as a consumer, I'm disappointed that EA doesn't want to try to do something.
Well, I've got some good news for you, Tim, or it could be. EA is actually hiring for a Frostbite engineer to work on Switch.
Well,
so they might be porting the engine over, which means we could get stuff, but I would not take that as we're going to get anything.
I know. Well, I hope so too, because they did use a different engine for Jedi Fallen Order. They didn't use...
I agree what you're saying about it being a mature game, but I think what you need to see is the biggest picture of the sales. Like The Witcher 3 still sold immensely on every other console, and I think if FIFA's, at least EA are giving FIFA a shot, right? And it's clearly working to a degree, but not enough to justify doing the full game. Anyway, we should bring this conversation up another time, right? Have a huge blowout discussion on it, and maybe around a dinner table. And
yes,
yeah, sure I did there. Boom. Thank me later.
There you go. Yeah, just again, I agree with you guys. Overall, it is about business. It's just from a consumer side.
Yeah,
I'm a Madden fan. I just want to see Madden games on the Switch.
I feel your Madden pain, and I support you in your quest.
Thanks.
Right. So, Gary, what have you been playing?
Me, I've been playing a game that's also not Nintendo, right? And also along the same lines of Pokemon Go. I've been playing Minecraft Earth, as it's in beta for Android users. And I'm not going to talk too much about it, but the love relationship between Minecraft, Microsoft, and Nintendo is sort of worth justifying and bringing this game up, especially because it's based on Pokemon Go. So it's basically the same thing as Pokemon Go. You walk around the real world doing things. It's very blocky. It's very Minecraft, and it's also taking it from a slightly different angle. There's a lot of like crafting times, which is a big mobile thing anyway, right? Where you build something, you have to wait real time. So they've gone that approach.
Pay money.
Yeah, they've gone that approach. So I expect that there's going to be transactions there. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm guessing that's what's going to be. But basically, as you walk around, instead of Pokemon appearing, there's all sorts of little, like, there'll be like a bunch of rocks or a tree or a pig or something like that, and you basically collect them to build your own dioramas. So I haven't dived too much into it, so I can't talk about the exact mechanics. I've seen a few things sparkling off in the background, which kind of look like Pokestops or gyms, but I haven't actually got to them yet. But from what I've seen so far, it's very Pokemon Go. So if you like Minecraft, you like Pokemon Go, then you'll probably enjoy it. I mean, the AR stuff doesn't work very well, but hey, that's just technology before the technology is right. And other than that, I've been playing a game which Justin skimmed across last week, the Turing Test, right? I think he just started it, right? Which is a Square Enix collective release. And basically, it's one of the most... it's one of the puzzle games I've enjoyed the most in a very long time. So it's a first-person puzzle game. It looks like a first-person shooter from screenshots because you've got a gun, but the gun's there to collect energy orbs, so you can suck them out of components to shoot them into others. It's basically circuitry-based, so it's all about like which wire leads up to where, which item this wire actually activates, how it activates it. It's all about different switches and stuff like that, and there is more mechanics gradually open up, and like a big mechanic introduced just after the halfway point, which I won't really talk about in case anybody's thinking of getting this game. But the puzzles are really good. Some of them are really easy. Some of them do get really tough, but they always sort of ease you after the tough ones with another couple of easy ones. So the difficulty levels like gets continuously harder, but you'll have a bit of a spike and then a come down. And I thought the progression of it was really good because of that reason. It's got an ongoing story where basically you play as a girl called Eva, and she's woken from a sleep on a vessel and sent to Europa, which I believe is one of the moons of Jupiter, right? But she's sent down to the surface because the rest of the crew have gone missing, and you're aided by a computer AI called Tom, who you don't actually see. He's not like a robot or anything. He's just an AI intelligence.
So completely not GLaDOS, huh?
Oh, no. And basically HAL 2000, I mean, Tom can control like CCTV cameras and stuff like that as well. So he's always got eyes on you, and the basic premise is that you go into this section of rooms, which is the puzzles, called the Turing Test, and it's to decide whether you are a human or a robot. So it's designed to keep robots out but humans in, because the robots can't figure out the logic behind them in such a way that humans could. And and as you're going through it, the story opens up that basically it becomes about trust between a human and a machine, and about ethics and logic and stuff like that. So you're looking at a problem from one end, like the machine wants to do its mission for the sake of this, where the human wants to do this because of the sake of this. And you're both kind of right. You're both seeing it from a right angle. Both opinions are right, but there's a big this is in the center of it, so we have to go one way or the other. And one way is going to create one problem, one way is going to create another problem. Really engaging story. Really enjoyed it. And even though you go through it and you get the basic story, if you go off and do some some extra rooms, which are like really hard puzzles, they unlock like a more like incisive look to the story, and they're normally more like human based as well. So feelings and problems with that sort of stuff, and relationships between other humans and stuff like that. Honestly, I really, really love the story. I think even though the puzzles were good, I think it's a story that actually drew me in a bit more. So I would honestly, if you're a fan of puzzle games or circuitry, I suppose, and if you do like that sort of tense relationship between humans and robots sort of story, which you do see in a lot of sci-fi stuff, then check out the Turing Test. I highly recommend it. I think it's been a game that's really captured me. I started Pokemon but put it down in favor of this. So.
I think I'm going to have to check that one out.
Yeah. I know Justin did the video on it too. I think it was Justin that did it, but I know we have a video on Nintendo Dads for it.
Yeah, it was Justin, yeah.
Yes. So that's cool to hear. Something I'm going to have to put on my wish list.
I just have images of the box art. If you're a fan of circuitry, get this game. I love that.
Yeah. If you love electronics, if you try to wire up a toaster, then get this game. Also, I didn't put it on the list here, but I brought and downloaded Kunai, which released this week. Didn't hear too much fanfare about it, but I played this at EGX Res, and it was one of my highlights. It was a really good platformer, so I can't wait to dive. I've finished the Turing Test now, and Kunai's next, so hopefully I'll get some opinions to you next week.
Kunai, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jesse, over to you then.
Okay, so I rolled credits on 2 games this week.
What? Hang on, we're not here to complete games, Jesse. What are you doing?
I know. First, I finished Tokyo Mirage Session of Sharp FE Encore.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that where I was stuck last week, I think last week when I talked about it, I just got past the part I was stuck on the Wii U version, but I ended up finishing so I finished the story, rolled credits, and it opens up a new game plus that gives you a lot of options. You can say, I could, keep my money, keep my items, keep my skills, or not. Certain things had to move over, but there was a lot of things I had the choice to roll over or not. I chose to roll everything over, and then I did the first tutorial dungeon over again with my level 60 crew and just wrecked house. Because the monsters are still level 2 and 3 and 4. So I think I did one swing I did like 12,000 damage to something that only had 15 hit points. So I don't know if I'll go back, at least not anytime soon, to play through again. But one thing I am planning on making a video. It's going to be talking about the differences between the Switch version and the Wii U version. So I have that outlined out. I have preliminary footage made. I still have to record a lot of additional footage and then still write the script to figure. So there's still a lot of work I need to do with that. So
production there, huh?
Yep. Yeah. This is probably the most ambitious video I think I've ever made. So
nice.
We'll see if it ends up looking like it does in my head. That's the big question. Okay, so when I was done with that, I went back to Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. and rolled credits there. So I was stuck on the final boss before when I stopped playing, and I was talking with someone on Discord that they were at the same point and lost, and I did a little research and found out it's what you're supposed to do. It's not really a trick, but the game doesn't specifically spell it out, so it's something easily missed. There's something specific you have to do. It makes the final boss easier to beat. It's beatable without it, but doing this one specific thing does make it easier, and I was able to beat the boss. So when I talked about it before, at the end of Act 1, there's a big plot twist, which leads to Act 2. Finishing Act 2 rolls credits, and then it launches what people call the post game, or Act 3. When I think of post game in RPGs, I think of the plot is wrapped up and finished, and there's just a few extra things to do after the fact. Act 3 is not post game; it's part of the game. I kind of think they shouldn't have rolled credits at the end of Act 2, because it does, more things are taught, but then at the end of Act 3, once you finish, you can't even finish the 10 books of Tinkerton, or whatever that place is called in the 2D world, until you beat the final boss. When you do complete the 10th book, it gives you access to an 11th book, which I think is the super boss of the post game, and there's 4 stages to that. I'm stuck on the 3rd. It's basically 2 back-to-back fights that you cannot heal or save in the middle, which I don't like those. Anyway, so I still can do a little grinding because I'm still in the mid 80s to low 90s. But once I get to 99, I can't grind anymore. XP is meaningless. So I'll go when I'm at some point. I plan on going back and trying to beat that out. But at least at this point, I know I finished the story and I'm satisfied. It's like 122 hours.
Wow.
Tokyo Rush Sessions was right. More like 62, 63.
I always feel at that point like if Nintendo don't have a trophy system or some way of recognizing when you go the extra 9 yards there, or whatever it is, I always would pack it up when you finish a story as well with something like that. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm sure the PS4 version has significant trophies involving that, the end game. But so I consider this my favorite Dragon Quest of all time. At this point, I think it has surpassed 5. I got tagged in the photo. Thanks, Gary. Twitter just notified me. Okay, and kind of speaking of Dragon Quest V, before I pass things off to Tim, Netflix now has the Dragon Quest movie that was out in Japan. I forget the full title, but it was headlined this morning when I logged in. It's in English for the first time, in North America for the first time, and it's supposedly based off of the story of Dragon Quest V. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I wanted to start watching it before the show, but that didn't happen. So that definitely be something I plan on watching this weekend.
Well, I'll say this in regards to what you posted about that. It was like that, the artwork on that movie looks fantastic, and I can only imagine that one day, maybe even close, that we will play games that look like that too. It's not cutscenes; it's actual gameplay that look just like you're playing a movie, like a animated movie. We're close.
Yeah, we're close, and PS4, Xbox Series X will probably get closer.
Yes.
I mean, if you're looking at the Final Fantasy VII remake footage already, like that is looking very, very good on the graphic department.
Like if you compare what could be real time rendered today and go back to like Toy Story 1, we've already surpassed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
And that was like, I don't even remember, but it was like hours of rendering time to make the movie. Obviously it didn't take months to render it because they had a first server farm, but if it was a single computer doing it, it would have taken that long to do it.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn, right?
Your turn.
But before I mention the two games, and take a couple hours talking about those. No, not really. I won't take a couple hours. I just want to mention that when I went to add the Turing test to my wish list, I noticed that the game is on sale in the U.S. For 15% off up until the 21st, it looks like. So if anybody is interested in getting that, now's the time to jump on that, I suppose. Yeah. Or you wait until it goes on sale again.
I just now threw money at it, so.
There you go. All right, so the game I've been playing, and I've been really busy at work, so I have not been able to continue playing Luigi's Mansion. My goal is to get that game done. Where I left off there was the 10th level after being B2, and it's still there. I haven't started the 10th level yet. So
Tim, you need to push past the purple cat. It's worth it.
Yes, I will eventually. I did get past the cat. I don't know if it comes again, but I got past that in the tree level. So yeah. I did get past it there. But
yes, it may not be your last brush with the cat, but I'll stay away from spoilers. But keep going. It's worth it.
All right. Yeah, that's what I heard. It does frustrate people, but I want to finish the game because I'm enjoying it a lot. But what I have been able to play this week is part of Monthly Mayhem, and that is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Mario Kart. Doing the courses, the time trials for those two, getting those in, and realizing that I suck compared to everybody else. Because the time trials, people are posting some really good times, and I'm just like, how in the world are you doing that? So I need to probably going to go watch some YouTube videos and relearn how to drive my kart. Make sure I got the right karts or cycles to get across.
Are people doing that on 200cc or 150 or what is it?
150 on the MK8 and 100 on the Super Mario Kart.
Yeah.
So, but they're doing fabulous times, and I'm just like, I went through some of those courses and went through them the 5 times or the few times to try to see if I could get better and better at it, and I was relearning how to play because I hadn't played it in a while. It's just I thought I did impressive, but I wasn't doing well enough.
I think the thing that we're all dealing with there is it's been out for 6 years, and there are some people who are 6 years amazing, and the rest of us just dip in and out.
Right. So, but yeah, this community of gamers here in the Nintendo Dads community is just great gamers at what they play, and constantly always playing, really having lots of fun watching these guys play Monthly Mayhem, and have fun, doing some banter and back and forth, and so just jumping in this one just kind of makes me realize why I like first one-player games versus multiplayer games, but it's still fun.
I'm the same way.
But that's what I've been playing.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up quick, and we'll go into our community spotlight. Okay, we have our topic from the community. I don't know if this was from email or from Discord.
Discord.
It came from Discord. From JC Sorrell says today's easy access to a lot of inexpensive games, SNES, NES Online, Genesis Collection, Indies, etc. inundate us and our kids, making it too easy to move on instead of developing nostalgia and love for what we have. I'm looking at you, McKids, Rockin' Cats, and Defenders of Cybertron City from my childhood. Okay. So he said that's a debate. So what is there a question? What he's? I'm not sure what he's asking
Well,
here, or just
what he's not necessarily asking. He's stating something that his observation is today's easy access to all these inexpensive games makes this, when we were growing up or had access to games, it was we played a game and we took a few months to play that game. And whatever it was, whether it be like these examples you gave us, the McKids or the Rockin' Cats or Defenders of Dynatron City, which may not have been your, AAA or AA or even a single A game. We played it because that's what we got. Whereas today we are inundated with easy to grab games, not even just here, but even if you're a kid that's lucky enough to get access to a tablet or a phone, you just go pick up a game and
Xbox Game Pass is a good example.
You can just bring in a game onto the next, onto the next.
Yeah.
So if you're bored with it, you're just jumping onto the next thing. So I think that's.
I'll tell you what comes to my mind when I hear you laying that out, Tim, and I think that's a good interpretation of the question. I actually think games as a service is kind of bringing everybody back to that era of gaming where everybody played the same thing forever. One of my kids plays Fortnite endlessly and is still playing Rocket League endlessly. And it's not exactly the same thing that he's talking about because, yes, they're awash with choice and there's different reasons for that. But if one of the things we've missed a little bit is people playing something to completion and being wedded to a game for a long time and there being a cultural zeitgeist around it because there's nothing else to do. Actually, games as a service, for better or worse, has kind of brought that back a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is the fact that, like, when your mom went out and brought you a game and it would be something that completely obscure that nobody else had ever owned, that was your game. That was something that you had nostalgia over, where now it is the big games. It is Rocket League. It is Fortnite. It will be The Witcher and all that sort of stuff. And I think that to a point that there is like a new nostalgia in a way because Game Pass will bring the big games and everybody will play those games. But I think this is more about the smaller games that like you might not have heard of. Like just imagine now if we've got the Switch library as it is. Right, we're all like 9, 10, and but the games are really expensive, and your mom brought like David, to your point, your mom brought you Spider Solitaire. Yeah. Jesse got brought Fortnite, a game that probably Jesse wouldn't play, right? Like your nostalgia will then be those games because it's tough luck. You're not having another game. You didn't wash enough dishes. You haven't earned your money. This is what you've got. But now, like with Game Pass, as an example, like there's more games on Game Pass than I had collectively over my Mega Drive and my Dreamcast, which are the two big consoles I had as a kid.
I also see the indie games also being nostalgic for my kids because they're easier to buy, and if they don't pass it up, because they can. If they're cheap enough, they'll buy a bunch of them. If they have enough of their allowance to be able to get an eShop card, so they can quickly buy it. One game that comes to mind for my daughter, which I think she'll have nostalgia for when she gets older, is Grease. She could not stop talking about that game because she loved it, the art of that game, what it meant to her. And just being, I think she's 14 when she played that, and so I think that's going to be a game, and it's an indie game, right? So yes, it was cheaper, but it made her stop and pause and finish that game. Yeah. And my son, he likes to keep, like if it's not holding his attention, he'll move on to the next, especially if he's got like I said, the money to do it. He'll move on to the next. But one that's holding his attention lately is Flat Out, if I got it right, that one of their games, and he's been loving that game. So,
my memory of the era that the reader's talking about is starkly different to the memory he's sharing. I mean, my memory of that time was you'd go to a Toys R Us or some game outlet, you'd see these boxes of whether it was Atari or a PC game or a NES game, and the box art would be like beautiful and amazing. You get home, you drop like $60 in the 80s on this game, which is like $180 now. You pop in the cartridge, and it could be absolutely diabolical. And you'd be playing that for months. And for me, that time was as likely to be hell on earth as it was to be a heavenly experience. Right. So I wouldn't change what we have now with all warts and all for what we had then, because it was such a roll of the dice, and it was so expensive as well. You think, $60 in the 80s was 2 months, 3 months of hard labor.
Yeah, we had the Jaguar, and I remember the games for that being like outstandingly expensive.
Yeah.
So we had one.
Yeah, and I was crushed over and over again by the box art being beautiful and the game being dreadful, and I wouldn't go back to that for the world.
It also goes the other way around, right? Because Mega Man had terrible, terrible box art, and it ended up being a mediocre game. Boom! Yeah. Marty's not on the podcast. Eat it, Marty.
Yeah, and kind of what I'm remembering, not really nostalgia, but like the crash of 82, 83. So you going to a KB toy store and just going through bargain bin of like $5 games and just seeing all the crap in there.
Yeah, right.
And then you still may see a good game on the shelf for $30, but unless you want that game, if your mom or your grandma is in a store buying you stuff for Christmas, they're not going to buy the $30 game. They'll buy 5 or 6 of the smaller ones.
Well, thanks to that crash, we had 2 5200s in our house. I had 2.
Wow. And nobody playing them. Yeah.
Yeah, because my dad was like picking them up at a garage sale, and then he'd pick up all the games people were selling. So yeah,
nice.
It was like,
so my son's a little older than what he's saying of us and our kids, I think. But so he has played like Ocarina of Time a bunch, so he has nostalgia for that. He just recently did a 1 day run of Wind Waker, like I think 14 hours. I think he said he was start and stopped it. But so he is. So he's not really playing all these collections and NES Online stuff. He is still playing the big games and playing them often. He was over the other day. Actually, he was over yesterday, and he showed me his Switch profile, and he had like 5 or 6 games of 100 hours or more. So the games he has, he's playing the hell out of. And, I think Smash Brothers, he has 500 hours in it.
Wow.
So I think he's probably on like the last of the generation of that might be doing this. I think more of the newer kids are probably more of what JC is referring to.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, but kids these days, it's just Fortnite, right? Like, how have you managed to put 2,030 hours into Fortnite? I don't know, Dad, but why don't you stop being a loser? So.
Oh, yeah. I think my son had like 150-ish in Fortnite, and he hasn't even played the game in a while. So that was like from last year's numbers.
Well, very quickly on that, Jesse, I have a theory that Fortnite is sucking wind right now, because since they relaunched the map to version 2.0, I mean, I know loads of kids that have fallen off that in my son's friends group, so I think they've really shot themselves in the foot there on the side.
Then they get people like me coming back because I can actually kill people now on it, now that all the pros are gone.
That's one way to do it.
Mm-hmm. I got my first, what do you call it? First
chicken dinner?
Victor Royale.
Right.
Victory Royale. I got my first one too after that. So
that was a real dad thing I said. I said chicken dinner, but that's PUBG, right?
That's PUBG.
So, Dad, you're such a loser.
Get it right, man.
Get it right, man.
It's a Royale with cheese.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay, that's all we have. So let's. I'd like to thank Dave for joining us this week, and thanks again for being a Patreon producer, along with Chris Mears, Sean Abbott, and Antonio Contrenio. Sorry about the name.
Just.
Yeah, they asked a question on Patreon. You might want to just read out if you want to give a quick answer from Antonio there. I actually want to answer it if you don't mind, as a fellow producer.
Sure. I don't even know what the question is. So
Yeah, so Antonio put a question into the Patreon pre-show mention here, and he says, if we don't get a dedicated direct for Animal Crossing before it launches, are we guaranteed to have a lemon? And if it's sour, is there precedent for a major Nintendo title getting a patch right after launch? Well, of course, there's a precedent for patching games in Nintendo, no problem. But I want to say here and now, because I won't see you guys for a while, Animal Crossing is going to be a lemon. I'm saying it now. I can tell it. You can see it in the tea leaves. And Antonio is exactly right. And I love Animal Crossing, but it's got problems for sure.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm
Interesting.
yeah I am starting to get concerned. You know, more concerned that we don't have a general direct more than we don't have an Animal Crossing because Animal Crossing still has some time.
I think Animal Crossing's always been Animal Crossing, right? I think people might expect more from it this time, but it's going to be basically New Leaf on an island.
That's what I'm worried about. It's not gonna be different enough. It's basically Pokemon again. You know, I think they're falling into Lazy Town, which is sad to see.
Yeah. Well, we've just completely killed off the hype for
Anyway,
Animal
Antonio,
Enjoy it,
good
guys.
question.
That is a good question. Yep. I guess I'll try to bring it back around, maybe more in a positive tide. I'm hopeful for it. Yes, they haven't been talking about it, but it is Nintendo. Nintendo has not. Yes, they do some silly, stupid things every now and then, but they have not given me anything to make me have pause that they would deliver a game like this.
Right, I've got to quickly duck out, but it's been great talking to you guys, and hopefully I'll be back on another one soon, right? But for now, I'm going to be late for work, so I've got to shoot.
Okay.
Ciao.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye.
Later, Gary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm giving Nintendo benefit of the doubt because they have not disappointed me as far as when they release a game. Yes, there's been disappointments, but not when they release a game. So at least nothing jumping to mind. So
I admire your positivity. I'll get on that train. Fingers crossed.
yes. So hopefully this is not the first, of things. But like we were talking about earlier, hey, they're gonna do something, pull that trigger to see if it fails, and then go from there. So who knows? Oh, no, I was going to say, too, Jesse, actually, it wasn't about the question. What I was going to say was we can't gloss over how long David's been a Patreon of the Nintendo Dads.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was actually checking my Patreon account. 3 years and 3 months, it turns out, is what it's been. So it's been a pleasure. I look forward to many more.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you for support. I think you're the original Patreon producer, if I remember.
Yes, I think I was the first one. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, then we were all surprised when we actually had someone do that, and then we have more, and we have over 100 Patreons now. So I'm still amazed about this community.
Yeah. It's a great community. That's why I've been involved in it for so long, because it's nice to be in a positive group.
I was right behind you, Dave, until I became a Nintendo Dad, and then I didn't have to.
Yeah, man, you crossed over. You actually joined the show, which is remarkable. Yeah,
you drank
these
the
crazy
Kool-Aid.
guys put me on. Yes.
Okay, I think with that we should probably start wrapping things up again. Okay, so again, thanks to Chris, Dave, Sean, and Antonio for being Patreon producers. We have a website, nintendodads.org, where we have our latest videos, tweets, and podcast episodes available, along with links to all of our social media and our Patreon page. And there's a link to our merch shop at redbubble.com. You can find us at most places like Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube by searching for Nintendo Dads. You can email us at nintendodads@gmail.com or leave a voicemail at 92925NDADS or 929-256-3237. Thanks to OC Remix for all the music we use throughout the show. And you can find our podcasts at the podcast app of your choice at CastBox, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, or Spotify. In fact, Marty was talking with someone earlier about something that's one of the skills that ties into Alexa, and he was having a problem with the feed. So it works. I think the problem is that he's having, and would solve any of the problems. If you're not seeing new shows, you may have to unsubscribe and resubscribe, and that would get that refreshed. So, and that wraps things up. Thanks for listening. Thanks Gary for joining us. I know he had to leave, and thanks again Dave and Tim for joining. This has been episode 267. We will talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Nintendo Dads.
Pew, 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 pew.